Welcome to Soft Serve, your place to soften into your feminine goodness and show up the way your soul came to serve. I am Mads Williams, and I help women rediscover self-pleasure, self-love, and self-trust. Welcome to episode 1. It's always such a joy to have you here and to spend time with you. Anyone who's been along on this journey with me for a while knows I have started and stopped multiple podcasts. I fucking love podcasting, and there've been really beautiful chapters that have accompanied me in my growth spurts. But late last year, I had this really mystical experience where I had 2 very powerful plant medicine ceremonies back to back within 4 weeks. And I guess my life has completely shifted from that point. It's like it kick-started me or shed any of the things that were standing in the way of me being my full self. I have this poem where I talk about Michelangelo and how he spoke of David always being there and he just chiseled it away. And I really feel like my experience last year was that. It was this birthing of the person I am sitting in front of you. And it's really interesting because with the second ceremony in particular, we were in this sacred site in Cornwall, which is where I live, and we were in silence. And we were asked to receive our intention from spirit. And the words I heard were sensual and erotic. And at that point, I was still very much doing human design as my full-time gig. But hearing these words, truthfully, I tried to ignore them. But later in the unfolding of the night, there was all this really sacred healing that was taking place around sexual trauma, around women's relationship with their body, around women's relationships with men or sexual partners. And I found myself going into this role of translator or guide between, I guess, the power of the yoni and putting words or helping women find words for their experience. One woman who I deeply respect and really love came up to me later in the night and she said something like, "What else in the world are you supposed to be doing?" And I just looked at her and I said, "Honestly, I don't think there is anything else." And so in that moment, I confessed to her that my intention that I had been gifted was actually sensual and erotic. And truthfully, from that moment on, I think that soft serve was hovering around me, waiting to be born. And for the next couple of months while I was integrating and coming down from this really transformative experience, every time I would find a rock in Cornwall that represented the yoni, that had this really kind of energy or power of female genitalia, I would either climb through it or I would set the intention, please let me be a vessel for what you want me to birth into the world. And I just kept offering that back up to spirit. And ultimately saying, I'm ready to serve. How would you like me to do so? And so from there, soft serve really, I think, served itself. It was a beautiful channel, and somewhere between my own experience of what I've been living with for the last 2.5 years, and then just receiving whatever was coming out of my mouth as I was sitting down to create the content. So it's truly the most spirit, heart, and yoni-led thing I've ever done. I'm so incredibly proud of it and so fond of it. I think of her like her own entity and her own mission. She knows where she needs to go, and I'm just the current custodian. But last night we wrapped the first portal, and truly, it was so sacred. It went so fast. And this morning I woke up really flat. I have this secret weapon, I guess, or this tool, or one of the tools in my toolkit, which is the question I like to ask: am I turned on by my life? It's a question I heard about 2 years ago when I was first engaging in the study around female sexuality. And I was really trying to achieve deeper vaginal orgasms and access the female ability to ejaculate, to squirt. And I just couldn't get there. I think if I'm reflecting on it, I was very much still coming from my head and in that masculine energy of outcome and trying to achieve. But more than that, I had a really painful heart and I wasn't particularly engaged in my life. So there was this one morning after meditation where I heard, you aren't going to get there with these orgasms. You aren't going to be turned on in the way that you need to be because you're not turned on by your life. And so in that moment, still very much committed to a life in London, Cornwall was starting to circle me. So I booked a trip for the weekend, hired a car and set off the next day. I just needed to do something to bring life back into my veins and my experiences and do something different and also follow the soul nudges that were really trying to get my attention. So for me, that question is just so invaluable. And this is why I love sexual energy so much, because sexual energy is creative energy. It's life force energy. It's really all about newness. If you think about the fact that sexual energy, the very act of sex is to create new life, if we're not focusing that on creating babies, then we can really be recirculating it into our reality, into our projects, into our own energy, into our relationships. So I often find that the concepts that you play out intimately in sex can be really applied to all areas of life. So this morning when I asked myself, are you turned on by your life in this kind of flat, come down, what I heard was no. So my default was absolutely to get in the car and go for a drive. But reflecting on the fact I really wanted to birth this podcast, I came back to the idea that perhaps that would actually be a slight form of self-sabotage. And how could I instead turn myself on to create a space and a feeling in myself that would get me energized and excited to be recording this episode? I can be totally in my feminine chaos. I love it. Often when I'm being incredibly creative, my flat looks like an absolute artist studio where there's just like clothes everywhere and I haven't done the dishes and it's mad and wonderful and it fuels me. But it can tip into that thing like anything where it's gone too far and suddenly it feels like you've let something go and you've lost control, and not in a gorgeous surrendered way, but in a way where you're feeling overwhelmed. So the first thing I thought was, well, I'm not turned on by my flat. It's absolute madness. So in that, I cleaned, I saged, I went out and got fresh air while all that energy was leaving through open windows. It's the first day of my bleed, and I've been really working on self-pleasure through my bleed to reconnect with that creative channel, to connect with this notion that the cervix is such a gorgeous spiritual gate to our mysticism. And so when we're bleeding, it's open and it's sensitive and it allows us to deeply connect with our femininity. So I set the intention of being with myself, being with my body, being with oil and gratitude, and really allowing that softness that one can crave on the first day of their bleed to come through in the way I treat myself and the way I touch myself. And from that place, I suddenly had all this energy to start moving my body again and try a different form of exercise and all the things that have been feeling really overwhelming for me. Suddenly with this shift of, am I turned on? No. Why? Okay, let me clear out all the things that are blocking me. I just have a complete shift of energy moving through my flat, my body, my heart, and my creativity. So I really recommend it as a go-to. But the topic I really wanted to talk today about is one of the concepts that we finish soft serve with. And it's this notion of put me where you want me. I think my favorite flex in engaging with this work in my own life has really been taking the idea of feminine energy and masculine energy out of my head and out of theory and into the energetic dynamics of it. Not making it right or wrong, but really practicing how does me being in connection to my feminine energy put me in a really beautiful, powerful, self-sufficient place. And the paradox of that, or the dance of that, is that all the while working on softening and opening, working on being receptive, but not reliant. It's so fun, and it will most likely forever be a practice. But I think about the difference of even dating a year or two ago versus how I experience dating or intimacy now. And there's such a difference in what I was seeking and what I'm available for. So much of it previously used to be seeking validation from outside of me, almost looking over my shoulder to see, are you still interested? Do you still want me? Am I still valid? Whereas now the shift is so much back onto knowing that I am, but also into what am I creating? What am I loving? What are my relationships and my friendships like? There's this notion that the cup is really full. But from that place, it becomes really fun to then be in the dance of the masculine energy. And so this notion of put me where you want me gets to be really welcome and enjoyed, because it's not coming from a submissive place. It's actually coming from a really embodied, empowered choice to soften into somebody's leadership, I guess. But just like I talked about this idea of borrowing sexual language, my relationship with human design and how I work with the universe or spirit is really connected to this idea of put me where you want me. So let's go back to that idea of when you're like deeply, passionately connected to someone. And it's that idea of just fuck me, or you're in charge, throw me up against the wall. What do you want to do with me? You know, when we're in this really beautiful, open, safe, and trusting place with a partner, that type of leadership is really soothing to the feminine. We get to release, we get to relax, we get to be off the clock. We get to soften into a part of us that is desperate to be opened and seen. And I had someone the other day tell me that I was the boss. And I've been thinking a lot about it, because fundamentally I am. And actually, fundamentally, my yoni is the boss, because she's the one that dictates whether there's attraction, whether I'm wet enough for penetration, whether I want to see someone again or see someone for the first time. But really with women, once we have this ability to, or once we've been able to establish true safety with a partner, in sexual dynamics, often what we want is to step out of the boss, or at least step out of the nag, step out of having to take control and be in this overworked hustle or dominance. But settling back into this idea of, well, I don't want to be the boss. Not when it comes to being shown how the male energy wants to show up for the feminine. It's almost this unspoken thing where, of course, I'm the boss, I'm magic, I'm the mystic, I lead us energetically. But when we're talking about this 3D world of dating or being courted or all these things, let's see what you have. Let's see how you take charge. Whether you're in a relationship or not, put me where you want me. I think everyone can really feel into that idea of when you're completely in the throes of passion and completely surrendered yourself over to a partner. It is so satisfying to be in that state of receiving. And so most of us are out here running around trying to control our future, trying to manifest, thinking we know all the answers. But what human design has taught me is that it's my gut. It is my sacral, because I am a generator. My sacral is the thing tapped into source. My sacral is the thing tapped into the greater plan. So as long as I am following the clues from my sacral, then my sacral is putting me where I need to be. Then the universe is putting me where I need to be. And I think in this process of building out a new business and walking the walk about being in trust, having those types of practices or sentences or philosophies can really help on those days where we're having a total human wobble or we're feeling really out of control or trying to desperately control. So put me where you want me is something that I love considering, both when I'm with a partner, but also when I'm working with the universe and tapping back into my own intuition and trusting that I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. So just in the way that we can think of sexual energy in our life as creating newness, we can absolutely apply it to things like manifestation. So again, put me where you want me is absolutely a phrase that I bring into my self-pleasure. You know, it's something that I visualize with the universe before I'm about to orgasm, or I might repeat it as a mantra throughout a pleasure practice with myself. And it's also this idea of drawing our attention off things that aren't for us or people that aren't for us or things that are leaking our energy and really tapping into a plan that we might not understand yet, but getting shown and really serving the way that our vessel can best serve, trusting that spirit has a mission for us and what we need to do is keep ourselves clear and open to receiving it. And then from that place, action what we're being told is to be shared with the world. So, like I said, welcome to the first episode of Soft Serve. Where we go with this is always an experiment, just like anything I do. But I would love to hear from you if there are topics you want to know more about, or questions you have, or things that you don't say aloud that you're desperate to tell someone. I think what was really powerful about Soft Serve was how many comments were made about, you know, you don't normally get to speak like this, or you don't normally hear things like this, or even the language we were using really shifted throughout the course of the portal. And like anything, when something becomes your new norm, it's really exciting because you embody a new identity. And so sexual energy, sexual experience, sensuality, pleasure, dating, lust, love, longing, all of this is something that I now find very comforting to speak about and very natural. And so I hope to share more with you as Soft Serve shows me where it's going. And thank you very much for being here and trusting me with your time, your energy, and your softening. Sending you big love, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.